So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Daddy.
Good morning, everybody online. It's nice to have everybody here. And I suppose if somebody wants to switch or turn on the chalice light. That nice glowing flame. So today is all about the healing mind. So the mind is more powerful than we really know, and today we will explore some of that through my own experiences, some research and ideas. So yeah, that should be pretty good. Then we'll look at how the mind is connected to physical healing, faith healing and spiritual healing, and see how that interconnectedness and how that relates. So the first part of this is physical healing and how the mind relates to that. So we have things like hypnosis, which has always fascinated me, how that can link to the mind overcoming the limits of the body. So clinical hypnosis can significantly reduce and in some cases entirely replace chemical anesthesia to manage pain during surgery. In the 1840s, a Scottish surgeon called James Esdale reported thousands of successful operations using mesmerism or hypnosis, and he did that while he was in India. In fact, he did operations such as amputism, amputating limbs and stuff like that under hypnosis. So he did that rather well and successfully, but of course over time and trying to get people over, when he come back to the UK, trying to get people to do that consistently was deemed too much. So anesthesia as we know it today was deemed the best way forward than hypnotism, but I believe it still happens in various places for particular reasons when people cannot take anesthesia for some reason or other. So the University Hospital Centre in Liège in Belgium reported more than 12,000 cases using hypnosis for surgical pain management since 1992. An interesting fact. So it's something how that relation between the mind being able to have control over the body. That's quite a significant way of actually dealing with that impulse. When you hurt yourself, it's like, ooh, ow. I mean, it's an automatic reaction to, resist or run. Yeah. So, so my own journey with this, with migraines, which most of you know about, which I suffered with for nigh on 40 years. And I use different meditation techniques. So again, using something, trying to have the mind control the pain, and I was able to have full control of that, as well as other things that's happening in the body, illnesses and such. It's a very good way without using medication, which I found some medications made me feel not myself, as you Jean was saying earlier. You take things and you become a bit woozy and the world just doesn't seem right. And of course, the stuff I was taking was addictive, so it took me a year to get off that medication. I've had to slowly reduce it over a long period of time. So now I can manage my pain with different techniques. So again, I'm showing how the mind is able to overcome things like pain and illnesses. So a positive mind can keep you alive. And this, so I'm relating here to Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Auschwitz survivor. He argued that maintaining a specific purpose-driven mindset is crucial or surviving in extreme circumstances. His work, particularly in A Man's Search for Meaning, suggests that having a purpose to live allows people to endure almost any condition, suggesting that inattitude can be a matter of life and death, something he witnessed on a daily basis. So those who did not have a good mindset, they faded away quite quickly. They had nothing to live for, so they faded away. But those who was determined, had a good mindset, and was driven, had a purpose, and they managed to get through the worst of the conditions. Something I've delivered here once before in one of the services. So we think of our minds connected through brain function. That's how it's explained to us through a scientific way of looking at it. So humans do use virtually 100% of their brain, making the idea that we only use 10% a bit of a myth. Because that came through research, and it was only part of that research that everybody holds on to. So you might have heard we only use 10% of our brain capacity. Well, actually, it's more like 100%. Well, not every region is active simultaneously. Brain imaging shows all parts are used over a 24-hour period, even during sleep. The brain is constantly active, consuming about 20% of the brain's or the body's calories. So specific brain areas become active during mental tasks. For instance, a new study found that non-movement areas in the brain become active when a person thinks about moving. So linking abstract thought with physical motor pathways. There's a lot of that in a Taoist belief on how it's all about energy and how you think about movement translates to the actual movement, and how you can pick up on that kind of thing without physically interacting. I'll leave that for another time maybe. So chemical messengers like serotonin and dopamine directly regulate mood, emotions and cognition, bridging the gap between physical brain chemistry and mental experience. So the brain's motor areas are deeply connected to executive functions like thinking, planning and such, and visceral controls like the heart rate and blood pressure, providing a physical basis for mental regulation of the body. So our minds can override our physical motor functions, but what really is controlling the mind? So through hypnosis we see this, but what's really controlling the mind? What instigates the chemical reaction for us to think and resolve complex mathematical calculations? How does that work chemically? I'm just trying to think a little bit deeper here. So this is how we know how the brain works connected to the body, and the mind can then create chemical reactions and electrical stimulus to then affect the body. So that's how we commonly know that, through physical healing methods. That might be a lesser known song, I'm not really sure, but nice. So the next section of this idea of mind and healing is faith healing. So many years ago, I used to be a part of a church, and so you have, the laying on of hands, prayer, and every so often, not too regular, but now and again, they would have services where you would practice the healing, laying on of hands. So they used to have it up in the front, and then you would team up with people and you would pray for each other, and you do try and practice this laying on of hands. Now, being a young, fit man at the time, I didn't have much that was really wrong with me at that moment in time. So, but there was one occasion where I had a problem with my foot, and I did drama at that point. I was due to go on stage, and I was really struggling with foot, and of course there was a bit of moving about to do. So one of the guys says, "Oh, I'll try a bit of laying on of hands. We'll do a bit." So he did that, and I must admit, I thought, "Oh, well," and I was jumping up and down, thinking, "Oh, that's great." So off I went. I still felt the pain, but it wasn't as sharp, it wasn't distracting. It sort of dimmed it down a little bit. But through one of these sessions, and it was the same person in one of these church services, he says, "Oh, my stomach's been really not so good, and okay, we'll try this." And by the time I finished, says, "You know what? It's disappeared." Wow, that's amazing. So we just don't know the mechanism of how that works, and especially scientifically, we find it hard to sort of try and work that out. But there's also the other side of this, because there's people of all different kinds of stages of mind and purpose, and there was one instance where somebody had been in a wheelchair and couldn't walk, and allegedly they was all of a sudden could walk, but that was definitely not a faith healing, that was just put on. So it does happen. People do this for various reasons, and then you don't know, well, what is actually true, what isn't, what's actually worked, what hasn't. It becomes something which people cannot have much faith or belief in. But what I like to think of, we believe because we have evidence or experience of something. And we have faith that those who tell us these things are providing a belief which they hold as true. So when we engage our minds in healing, we sometimes put our faith in non-physical ways of healing. Some of them ways might be Reiki, or the laying on of hands, or sound therapy. These are some non-physical ways. You're not really doing anything internally, or you're not taking a tablet or medication. So I have had experience of Reiki myself. I don't know if anybody's ever tried this, but it is, sometimes they may lay a hand on you and you feel this warmth radiating through and a tingling feeling, and some people feel healed through that. I tried, this is one of the methods I tried when I was having my migraines. It didn't resolve my migraines, but for other people, for other things, it has resolved their physical issues. Again, not something we could really have the concept of how that works. So that is faith in sort of a faith approach on how that might work. But I read a book just recently, which I got lent, called The Water Money. And so this guy was a local guy, and he was a farmer, hard-working guy, and he had some natural instinct, inbuilt ways of looking at nature, the land, the animals. It was a job he loved, and he was very in tune with. It was called a water miner because he did the water divination, and he could determine where water was very accurately and create wells. And throughout the book, mainly about his farming sort of growing up, that he touches on this section of being able to find water and how accurate it was. And then there's a small section of faith healing. He thought, well, I think I'll give that a go. I think there's a lot of backstory that I was missing there, but he thought he would give that a go. He was obviously in tune with not just animals, but in the land, but also with people. And one story from the book is, I think it was a bull that had two great big lumps, and because I had trouble mating with, so this obviously causing the bull some discomfort. So he laid on his hands, and the lumps disappeared, they went away, and the bull was able to carry on doing the job. it was supposed to do. Another occasion, people, there's a couple who couldn't have children, so they approached him and he did the laying on of hands, and they was able to have children. So they'd gone to ad therapy and they'd gone, they tried it, they'd gone to the doctors and everything else, and it was deemed that they couldn't have children. But after seeing the water money, they was able to have children. Was that a coincidence, or was that just timing? Who knows? But that was something that happened. Was it a coincidence? I'd like to believe there's nothing as such thing as coincidence, but that's a personal belief, and it's not scientific in any way. So getting this relationship between mind and faith healing. Before I go into the next bit, there's one of the things I do is I like card magic. So one of the things you can do is you can plant subliminal messages into people's heads. And the first time I tried this was, you've probably heard of the magician Darren Brown. So he does all the mind kind of magic type of things. And one of the things, after watching his stuff, I thought, I'll give this a go. So, of course, I like to deal with work with cards. So I'm going to tell you how the trick works. So the idea is you manipulate the card. So you're just shuffling the cards, and the idea is you wait till the person is interested in. You don't say what you're going to do. They're just interested in what you're doing. So they're actually looking at you, shuffling the cards. So once you clock that, you manipulate. So you flash a card, and they'll see your card, and so that message is subliminally planted into the mind. Then you carry on. And there's other ways of doing it as well. You can tell them a bit of a story. A person called Jack, and he has a nightclub, Jack of Clubs, and stuff like that. So you can plant that, through wording as well. So you plant this subliminal message, and then you can. There's a way of creating decks. So you might have a few piles. And there's a way of planting that seed to make somebody choose a particular pile. And then you'll say, well, what card? Well, just think of a card, and what card were you thinking of? And you say, oh, the Jack of Clubs. And you say, okay, turn that card over, and there it is. Now that takes a lot of work in the background, and there's potential for it to go wrong. So I don't tend to use that kind of methodology too much because it's really hard work. But Darren Brown, because everything was. He believed there's a way of explaining everything, and he would look at people using faith healing, and he would think it was just it was a hoax. So he spent his time. He went to America, and he went to all these, because over there's a lot bigger than over here maybe, and he would debunk their claims of faith healing. He did a lot of research into this, and he did a documentary on it, so you can actually look at this if you was so inclined. But he decided to do a whole show on faith healing. I don't know if anybody's seen it. So he was able to manipulate people so that if he was in a room, you would not know he would vanish, and you wouldn't know he was still there, and then he would move new furniture, and there's a ghost, and he would then reappear again. That's how good he was at hypnotizing people or making people believe something. So in this show, he had people come up who had medical issues, and they would leave healed. There's one woman who needed glasses, for instance, and she came up, and after he'd finished, she could see, she could read things she couldn't read when she needed the glasses. But his advice was, don't throw your glasses away, because people's minds can reverse whatever is happening, as well as can have positive things, it can also have negative things. So, don't throw the glasses away, just in case. There's a way of making the mind believe a certain thing, and you overcome whatever it is you're suffering from, which is a remarkable way of, it's that non-physical way of interacting, and it's faith. And I could say a lot more on this theme, which would take the rest of this service, but there's a lot bigger thing going on here. But I just wanted to really touch upon this because it's very interesting and a deep way of realizing that the mind overcomes the body. So Darwin himself, having moved away from evangelical Christian faith, which he held in his youth, he generally identifies as a rationalist who finds no evidence for religious claims. He often approaches the topic with psychological focus rather than simply dismissive atheism. So he's not an atheist, but he likes to have a good way of explaining everything. Because he focuses on the mind, he has a good idea of how that relates. Yet there's something profound in the ability of the body to think itself well. So what is really going on during this process? Something we have yet really to fully understand. If we ever will, I'm not sure. But I'm not going to go too deep into that side of things. But it's a very interesting subject which keeps my interest, and something I keep researching quite often, and probably still will for some time yet. So this next section, spiritual healing. So I like to think of it as mind beyond borders. There's a common concept that seems to be going about of late, or the idea that there is only one mind and there's no private thoughts, which is a bit scary when you think about it. So it's through some of research and a thing called the Course in Miracles and other areas of mind connection. So the mind goes beyond the confine, or can go beyond the confines of the body, a phenomena that even some scientists might believe in but cannot quantify. There are lots of examples of this, such as animal communicators who do this. I could tell you a number of stories where animal communicators have managed to, even not even be in the same area, but remotely able to get animals to maybe move from one area to a different area to avoid harming themselves or harming another species of animal. So they can connect and alter the mindset of any animal when they are not in the same vicinity, which is again how the mind is not limited to the physical body. This is also the case with someone called Betty Shine. I don't know if you've heard of her. Who was a very prominent healer. She's not alive anymore. And some of her stories are quite astonishing. So I've been reading a lot of that of late. But it's hard to, so I'm just researching that and following that at the moment. So it's very interesting stuff. And it's again linked into some of the stuff I have learnt as in the Taoist kind of faith path. I'm going to tell you an experience now which leads me on to this next bit. So one day I'm asleep and then I'm slowly waking up. So I'm in that sleep or dream stage into fully waking. So you can split this into two different kind of consciousness. You've got the subconscious, which is still active while you're asleep and does all the motor functions like driving, breathing, and everything else that you don't have to really think about. And then there's a conscious state, which, you know, if I want to pick up this book, I have to actively think about picking it up, and then I pick the book up. That's a conscious state of mind. So there's an in-between stage, which we think that other things start to happen. Anyway, so I was asleep, I'm waking up, and I think, I feel like I've still got my eyes closed. So, but everything seems clear as day. So to try and not disturb this kind of feeling, I try and close my eyes. Of course I couldn't because my eyes were already closed, but yet I can still see something. So I'm not sure at this point, am I dreaming, or is this real, or I'm not really sure, but it felt real. I felt quite actively, you know, engaged in what I was seeing. So then I open my eyes, and then lots of things, you know, mind starts going crazy. And then I couldn't repeat that until a while after it happened again. So this caused me to do some research. Well, is this a thing? What's actually happening? Or am I just making this up? Apparently this is quite a common thing. It happens all over the world. And there's people who's trying to teach others on how to get into the state so you can see without actually using your eyes. This seems a bit far-fetched, doesn't it? But there's people who are actually actively training people that's been blind from birth to actively see. So in the UK, there's a company called ICU Academy, and they teach 5 to 12-year-olds this method, how to see. So they've got a program which is about 10 to 12 sessions, and with the idea that, you know, they hold up different colours, they can tell which colours they are, they hold up different cards, they can move the cards, they play games, all blindfolded, and they play games, they throw balls to each other. And the reason why they focus on younger minds is because they're not, they've not been trained to forget this ability. Apparently it's something that younger minds are easily able to get a hold of and a grip with. But it's not beyond somebody older, obviously. There's people elsewhere in the world that are trying to teach older people how to do this. So I'm going to show you a video of this. You can take of it what you will. Just bear with me 2 seconds while I pull this video up. Oh, sharing has stopped. Sharing window. Because I moved away. Okay, for those online, you might not see this. So I have to apologise.
Mix these up a little. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So. Okay. So. Tell me, Billy, I have a tricky one. One of the lines is upside down. Can you find out which one that is? Good. Great work. Okay. Can you pick up all of the ladybugs? Wow. Okay, you can put those next to you, bud.
Alright.
Alright, now how about the dolphin?
No.
Can you put, yeah, that was it. You're doing great, Billy.
It's a whale.
Oh, the whale. Can you put the whale on top of the zebra?
Huh? Alright.
Nice. And then can you take all the lions and put them on top of the owl? Nice job. And then, wow, I don't even know what else to ask you to do. It's amazing, Finley. Everyone's just so incredible. All right, Finley. Can you take the cards that are next to you and stack the ladybugs kind of in a nice row or column, like?
Alright. Huh?
Nice.
Huh?
shall share my screen again. So, for those who couldn't see, pardon the pun, it was a boy who was blindfolded, and he was asked to do various tasks with cards, and even corrected the person who said it was a dolphin. He said, no, it's a whale. So there's thousands of videos of well, there's lots the ICU Academy, there's lots of other videos, lots of stories of people being able to do it, and there's lots of, so what's actually happening there? You know, there's again the mind going beyond the limits of the body there, and so you'll find videos of people playing games, going around obstacles, and all kinds of different things. Again, you're like, well, is this all made up? Is this actually right? And I can only link it to what led me to exploring this, which was the original idea of my eyes closed, and yet I could see the room that I was in. So this is where the research led me. So a very interesting idea, and maybe it's a place in the UK, and without actually going down there and visiting and doing the sessions myself, I can't really say too much more about it. But it does incline me to think that, I'd like to think that it is possible. And again, what is going on there is a bit of a mystery. So there's more to life than we understand, and that's a good thing, I suppose. So there's a saying which I like to live by: you may not be able to change the world you see, but you can change your thoughts and the way you see it. Again, we can think of things as being good or bad, or we can think of things as just being more neutral, and how it relates to us personally. There's something going on at the other side of the world. You may never be affected by it, but something's going on in your world, in your environment. It's not directly touched. And then from that we can affect the people who we communicate with or deal with on a daily basis. So from what I have experienced, the mind is far greater and more expansive than the confines of our bodies. Until people experience that personally, it will always seem elusive. And as my ministry teacher always used to say, be curious. So that's what I'm always curious, and will always look into different ideas and things. So what have we learned today? The mind plays a big part in our physical health. With faith, we can heal far more than what we realize. The mind is not necessarily confined to the body. We grow up not really taking full advantage of our own abilities to be healthier, stronger, and more aware of our true nature, and how we can live a longer, healthier existence. Always be curious and never think we have mastered the limits of our understanding and our own abilities, is what I would say.